are listening to the 4-7 Podcast, the podcast where two normal guys interview and reminisce about their favorite Christian artists from the 90s and today.
Welcome to the 4-7 Podcast. I am RJ. This is Mike. We have a very special guest today. You will know him for a number of reasons. One, being in the band Kutless. And number two, coming out with probably one of the best albums of last year, according to very, very many people, including myself, Nate Parrish. How are you?
Wow, that's an intro. I like that song you guys played. Do you know who that was?
I'll tell you something. Whoever that was, they belong on Columbia Records or some like top of the line album right there. I'll tell you right now.
According to my mom, I'm gonna agree with you.
It was Jars of Clay.
That's what it was. It was the new Jars of Clay tune. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Totally rebranded. I love it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Greetings from California.
So how was the weather in California?
Dude, sunny and surfing.
Yeah.
Every day.
I
surf to work. I surf to the grocery store.
Well, you're sunny and surfing. We're snowy and shoveling over here. So,
so it was really cold like 3 days ago, and I had to wear a jacket and a hoodie.
Wait. What do you call cold?
Like 49.
That's pretty cold for California.
That's short weather in Rhode Island. Yeah.
It's cold, but today was like 70. So
yep, today was in the 20s.
Oh, okay.
I'll drink to that.
It's snow. Whenever I see people playing in the snow, it looks awesome because you think, oh, it's probably like soft and fluffy because it's. But then I remember what it was like being in snow. Like, it's not.
No,
it's ice cubes, so it's not as fluffy as it looks. But it would be cool to get some snow here. To be honest, we get snow like you could drive like 40 minutes and there's snow.
40. The great thing about Rhode Island, in 40 minutes, no matter where you are in the state, you're on vacation.
And you're out of the state. You've left.
You're out of the state.
That's cool.
So Nate, well, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
I remember. I was telling you, I first met you about 5 years ago at a concert. You guys were playing with Seventh Time Down.
Yeah.
And you're one of the guitarists of Kutless.
Uh-huh.
And I was saying to you, when I first met you, I was like, this guy's not a jerk. He's nice. I'm just saying, like, I've met some Christian artists that I talked to, and I'm like, oh, I can tell they didn't want to talk to me, but they were just being like, oh, hey.
Well, that's a huge compliment. Thank you. I was joking around. You just probably caught me on a good day because I'm usually a jerk. But no, one of my greatest thrills about being in a band and is meeting people. Because I'm just always humbled that someone would listen to anything that I do. Like, it's always amazing to me when, like, what you said, it's one of the best albums. I'm like, you heard it? That's cool. So it's always really humbling to me. So I thank you. Yeah.
No worries. And I'm gonna get to another album that I absolutely love. And I remember talking to you about it, and you were like, wait, you heard of that album? I'm like, yeah. But before we get to that album, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
Where are you from? Because does that hair you have, is that like genetic? Because like people in Rhode Island, their hair is not that perfect.
Well, it's because of the cold weather. It destroys the hair follicles.
Nice.
It's science. But in California, everyone has hair like this.
I am telling my wife,
boys, girls, babies come out like this. All the dogs have hair like this. No, it's genetic. My dad, Native American blood in my background.
Really?
Yeah. So he had a full head of white hair and a white beard. So he looked like Kenny Rogers.
That's fantastic.
So that's in my near future.
So where are you now? Where are you from originally? Where are you from?
A little place called Stockton, California. It's northern. At one point, we were voted one of the top 5 worst places to live. So in your face. It was. When I grew up there, I didn't think anything of it. But when I tell people, they're like, "Whoa, you're from Stockton? Or you like? Did you get shot?" No, I don't think so. It's got some dangerous things in Stockton, but that's where I grew up, and I've lived all over California. I've lived in California my whole life, but I lived in like 5 or 6 different cities.
Nice. Now, your parents, you have you've been in music for a long time.
Yeah.
Did your parents, were they musical people? Do they play instruments?
No. My mom sings, but not. Is she gonna watch? She probably won't see this. Not super great, but she sings her heart out, and she makes up her own lyrics a lot.
Nice.
So I'd always sit when we did go to church, I'd be next to her and, her singing. I could see the words, and then I could hear her making up her own words. I was like, what are you singing?
Me and your mom would be best friends.
We have a huge mom fan base, by the way, so you might be in trouble. We'll see.
That's awesome.
We're part of the moms of Facebook groups. So.
Oh, I love it, dude. I have a mom tattoo, actually.
Do you really?
Yeah,
nice.
That's for your moms out there. But and my dad did not play any instruments, as far as I know. But I heard him. This is kind of a sad, but also a really cool story. So he passed away 9 years ago, and I never heard him sing ever, except for like maybe a joke. But the one time, shortly before he passed away, he butt dialed me, and it was a recording of him singing both of our favorite songs, and it was like really good. And
what song was that?
It's a song by Social Distortion. It's called Prison Bound. Nice. My dad was kind of a hellion when he was
okay.
So I think he related to that song.
Nice.
And there was this. So I had this recording on one of my old phones of him singing it, and it was actually really good. And so maybe that's where it came from. I don't know.
So when did you start? When did you personally get into music?
So my earliest memory is I was probably 6, and MTV had come out. If you don't know what MTV it used to play music videos, and so my uncle would babysit me because my mom was at that time she was working, so someone had to watch the kids, and my uncle would just put me in front of MTV, and he's like, "Yeah, Nate just watches MTV like for hours and dances. That's all he does." And so they figured out that one of my favorite songs was, I think it was Days Go by Talking Heads. And I don't know why. For some reason, I love that song. So for Christmas that year, I got a cassette. And I didn't know what it was because I'm 6 years old. So I remember opening it and being like, cool box, thanks. And they're like, no, it's that song that you like. And they showed me how to put it in the cassette player and stuff. And so that's my earliest memory of music. But I didn't touch a guitar till my 18th birthday. Really? Yeah.
So growing up, like, who are you listening to? Like, well, here's a question too. Like, when did you become a Christian? Actually, let's go with that route.
Okay. So I grew up in I don't know, it was a Christian household, but it was a little unorthodox, or maybe it's not. But my mom was a very strong Christian. Very, very strong, very passionate, still is. And my dad was not into it because he came from a Mormon background. So he was not into the religious thing at all. So there was that kind of tension there. But we went to church sporadically. We didn't go very often.
Okay.
But I had a understanding. And then when I was old enough, my mom sent me to a Christian school.
Gotcha.
So I had that kind of, it was there, but it wasn't super prevalent. But in school, I think I was 10 years old, and I think that's when I kind of was old enough to grasp the concept of what salvation is, and it's not, just in its simplest form. I'm a sinner. I need a savior. Jesus is that savior. That makes sense to me. Okay, let's do it.
Nice.
So I'd say 10 years old, but into my 20s, early 20s, I think is when I really started to actually test it and challenge my beliefs and all that kind of stuff, as a lot of people do when they go to college. It's kind of that.
Yeah. Nice. So let's fast forward a few years. If I remember correctly, your first band was what they died for. Worth dying for.
It was What They Died For.
Yes, Worth Dying For.
Worth Dying For was my first band that you would have heard of. Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Now, how do I disregard my slip up right there because I really loved Worth Dying For a lot because it was a it was a worship band, but it had definitely more of an edge to it, and most worship bands did not have any edge at all. Even to this day, worship bands don't have edge at all.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. So that happened when I was, early 20s. I had finished college as far as like liberal arts. I was just studying, basically I was kind of going to school so my parents wouldn't get mad at me. But I really secretly just wanted to be in a band. Yeah. So I had bands going, and if I didn't have a band, I would just do solo stuff. Yep. And my buddy was like, "Hey, you should move to Modesto and do this music internship to be a worship leader." I was like, "No," but something about it felt like the right move. So I had no intentions of being a worship leader. I wasn't into worship music at all, really, except for what I heard, which was, I don't know, maybe like Stephen Curtis Chapman or something like that. I didn't know what it was. So I got to that internship, and I was in my first worship band, which was youth. And I didn't, so I, coming from the punk rock background, I just took all that into worship. I didn't, in my mind, I was like, why would I change what I do for worship? Like, this is my offering. This is how I do it. So I would do it the same way in church. And that was kind of a little weird for people, but it worked because in our youth group, we just had decided we love, Hillsong, all that stuff's great, but there's nothing for people like us. There's nothing for the tattooed, pierced kids that wear all black and love As I Lay Dying or whatever band, Norma Jean. So we just started writing our own stuff and trying to push, specifically my role in the band, I felt like was trying to push a lot of that edge. Like I was the screamer in the band and all that kind of stuff. And so that's how it started. We just started writing our own music and for our youth. And
Like I think the song, I have to keep thinking of the song Revolution. Today is gonna be the I'm not gonna sing it. I don't sound as good as the lead singer, but anyway.
It sounds just like my mom.
That's what I'm talking about. RJ, we need to forget this podcast stuff. We need to start a band, RJ. We call it the Moms of Facebook. I'm telling you right now.
Hey, copyright that.
But no, I remember like the song, the song Revolution. It just when I first heard that song, I kept thinking to myself, "It's a praise band," but it's not. But it is. Yeah. And I loved it. I love what you say. You're like, listen, this is the kind of music I like, and praising God and praising Jesus can have an edge. And it was just a great album.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Rob Canavan says that that album was actually better than Petra Praise.
Well, I appreciate that. It was a unique experience because, we just did what we felt like. Basically, we made music that we wanted to worship to, which I think is what you should do if you're a creator. You should create the things that you want to create, not necessarily, oh, that works, so let me do that. Because there's enough of other stuff, but we weren't sure how it was going to be received, and I always came from the school of thought like worship doesn't have a genre. Worship's not a genre. Worship is a posture. It's a state of heart. So you can be a banker and be worshiping because you're doing your job honestly.
Absolutely.
Right. So music. Why is music different? It's not. It's just if you're in a metal and you want to worship God that way, then just do it. I don't think God's gonna be like, whoa, that doesn't sound like Hillsong.
I love that. And actually, we have one of our listeners says, "Amen to that."
Yeah, I actually got into. So I grew up in the church doing like Jars of Clay and kind of the lesser rock. I don't say lesser, but less rock.
Yeah.
And then I heard Spoken for the first time, and they were screaming Jesus' name, and then we had him on the podcast. He was our first guest.
Oh, cool!
And it was really cool. But hearing like someone scream Jesus' name was like one of the most worshipful things I'd ever heard to that point.
Yeah.
and then getting into more bands through the X albums that came out throughout the 2000s, introducing you to kind of some more harder bands that were doing the worship thing. And sometimes it wasn't just covers of worship songs; it was creations, it was new songs, and it really, like you said, it was a new thing for a group of people that felt like worship didn't identify with them, like the identity, the worship music that we had. So I think that's really important that you were in bands like that brought worship to a different culture of people.
Yeah, I'm proud that we were able to do that, and I'll go back and listen to like our second album.
Love
is
Riot.
even Love Riot. That was the one. So the opening song, which is like has the most screaming, I actually wrote. It's called Savior. I actually wrote that in 2005, but when we showed it to the label, they were like, "It's," and our manager at the time was like, "It's too much. It's not gonna be received." And so that's why I ended up coming out on the second album. But I love that album. I actually like that one a little bit more because I felt like we pushed those boundaries to we actually explored that a little bit more. And so
Now, you guys were signed to, was it Integrity Records?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, how did that come about?
Super weird. So we had all these songs. We did a worship night, and somewhere on the internet there's a video of this. We played like 22 songs in one night for our worship, our youth, and we picked the songs that we liked. And then we had a connection with Planet Shakers. Are you familiar with that band?
Yeah, he actually produced that record. Actually, one of the guys, right? Yeah.
So Joth, who is now the leader of Planet Shakers, he was just getting started. So they're like, "Hey, you can borrow Joth for like 10 days to make an album." And so he flew from Australia. We recorded 15 songs in 10 days. It was a marathon, and so we had our own album. We did all the packaging, all that stuff. And then because of MySpace, like festivals were contacting us. So we ended up getting asked to play Spirit West Coast. And we had our master with us, which is like, why would we do this? But our pastor, he does the spoken word on the albums. He met who he thought was the organizer of Spirit West Coast.
Okay.
And he gave him our master to like listen to it. Hey, check us out. Turns out that wasn't the lead guy. That was one of the groundskeepers.
Oh, nice.
So we found out. He's like, "What have I done?" But in a weird twist, he was listening to it in his cart. He was picking up all the big names of the festival with this music playing.
Oh wow!
So the guy ended up hearing it. And then they said, "What is this?" They came and saw us. Then they told record labels. So we had like Sparrow and Tooth and Nail never came out, but they were sort of interested. A bunch of other labels came out, and Integrity was the one that we felt like got the worship thing. They weren't necessarily trying to make us a rock band. And so Don Moen, does that name sound familiar to you? He's like
Don Moen. Let me tell you something. Great piano player, by the way. It has the most unique kind of, not a high-pitched voice, but like, yes.
I didn't know who he was, of course, but everyone's like, "Dude, Don Moen's coming." I was like, "Sick. Who's that?" But Don Moen was actually the one who signed us. And so he signed us to Integrity, which looking back, I was like, "Oh, that was a pretty big deal." So it was like nothing that we could have orchestrated, and even if when we did try to orchestrate it, it just went terribly wrong. But somehow it worked out.
Nice. Like I said, absolute great album. And like I said, between Christy's voice, Christy's voice, beautiful voice.
Yeah.
Sean's voice, your guitar playing, it was fantastic. And it's one of those albums that I always say to myself, I wish they came out with more albums besides the two.
We briefly talked about it a couple of years ago.
You should talk about it again. And tell us, there's a guy in Rhode Island who will pay big bucks.
Hey, we talked about a little bit of a reunion a couple of years ago. They actually started their own church in LA, and they're called Fearless Band now, and they changed over all the stuff, but the music's totally different. And it's just Christy and Josh, who is their drummer. And then a bunch of new guys and stuff. But so it's the original member, like the original other three are not a part of that. But
the pastor from that church was on Love Riot, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's spoken word. Yeah. He does some more spoken word type stuff on there. Yeah.
So, Worth Dying For has ended. Now you went Kingdom.
Then I went to Kingdom.
Another worship band.
Yeah, that was another unique situation. I moved to Sacramento, and I walked into a church because I literally walked in.
Yep.
And the first guy I met, his name was Jordan. He said, "Hey, do you want to get lunch?" And I was like, "Yeah." He knew me from Worth Dying For.
Yeah.
He just started a worship band there that literally he wrote a song, they recorded it, they entered the guitar player's mom entered it in a contest to open for the Rock and Worship Roadshow.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
So they won. So then they had to write more songs because they had an opening slot. Nice. And so as I was getting there, so then they're like, "You should be in this band." And I was like, "I love being in bands." And so I joined Kingdom, and we wrote we did 3 albums.
Yep.
And I actually love. They're not as obviously Kingdom wasn't as popular, but I actually love a lot of that stuff, man. It was cool.
Now, what do you like about it that's different? That was different from Worth Dying For.
Well, my theology had evolved a little bit, and
sure.
In the most gentle way I could say this, I think a lot of times with worship, and particularly a lot of the Worth Dying For stuff, we tended to be a little me-centric.
Yes.
And so, but with Kingdom, with Jordan, who was he was a youth pastor at the time, and my theology had kind of changed to where I was like, I think we should probably be making this Jesus-centered. Yes. So a lot of the lyrics we would agonize over the lyrics of that album. If you listen to, we tried to make sure that they were very Jesus-centric, and we've spent a lot of time on the lyrics. So I love the time we put into the lyrics. I love the it wasn't hard like Worth Dying For, but it was a little bit more in that Angels and Airwaves kind of pop rock vein, which was a lot of fun for me because, it was just something new.
I tell you, I appreciate what you're saying, because one of my biggest pet peeves is people. Well, I think we'll kind of get into it when we talk about your newer album, but there's one song there's a song on your newer album, Politicians and Celebrities. And
what's that about?
But the one thing I like about it is like we become so obsessed, and it doesn't really. Let me before we get to that part. But what I'm trying to say is, when you said the whole worship about us, we make it all about us.
Yeah,
we forgot who made us. We forget who put us on this earth. We forget who we're here to worship. And what's happening, I find, in this world, and not to go on a tangent, but it always drives me nuts, is we as people, we get so obsessed with other people, how they can make us feel. And we write songs about how we should feel. But listen, worship music is about worshiping Christ, not us.
Yes, exactly. And it's a hard thing to do, because that is kind of it's an easy thing to do, because everyone loves talking about themselves, and like worship music, and like that was kind of the thing that I wanted to really do with the Kingdom stuff. Was it's easy, like Revolution, still a great song, fun song, but it's kind of saying what we're gonna do, and that's cool, but nothing we ever do will compare to what Christ did.
Amen to that.
So you should probably focus on that.
I like that. That makes total sense. It's one of those things where even I talk to people about blessings, like, oh, God blessed me today with this.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, and they always put it to like a materialistic thing. Like, oh, God blessed me with a new car. That's great. I'm sure he did. But we don't always have to, blessings aren't always made to make us feel good. Like we need to live like, there are times in our theology we need to learn that sometimes God
Yep.
uses trials as a blessing as well. It's not
Yep.
always about making us feel good. At the end, it's all about glorifying Christ.
Yeah, and so that was cool. I got it's sort of like I got another chance to sort of do a rock worship album, and then maybe adjust some things that I wanted to change about what we were doing. So
Nice. So you're married,
I am.
no kids, right?
I have a 6-month-old.
Do you?
Yeah.
Congratulations, my friend. How's
Thanks.
that? Here's the question. No, I'm a dad. Well, me and RJ are fathers.
Yeah. Okay.
How's that going at 6 months?
So he is a really good baby.
That's
He's
awesome.
so chill. The last couple of days, though, this dude, he has learned he hits a new frequency when he screams.
Been there, my friend.
And it's like he used to be like, ah. Now he's like, ah! And it just like destroys my ears. And I think he likes the sound of it.
Yeah.
So even when he's not crying, he still wants to just make that sound. But he's really good. It's changed me. I feel like I'm a lot more. It softened me up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Where, for example, like in Bakersfield, drivers and pedestrians are just like, it's like the Wild Wild West. They don't care. They don't care about street lights. They're just like, oh, I'm going to run across the intersection. Actually, no, I'll walk. And so I was driving one day and this guy just like starts walking across a busy intersection. And then I am staring at him and he looks at me like he wants to start a fight because I'm like trying to go around him. And it used to be maybe my first reaction was like, oh, I'm going to run this guy over. But now I'm like, where's your dad? Are you okay? Are you hungry? Do you need me to change your diaper? So
that's amazing.
It gives you a new perspective on why people do the things they do.
I relate to that. I do relate to that. It's awesome. It's funny. My daughter used to have these screams, and I'd be like, is there a demon in this house?
Bro, he hit some notes. I look at my wife. I was like, is that normal? Because it was cool. He kind of sounds metal in a way. Sometimes he's, wow!
So you should like record your son's voice.
Oh, I'm already ahead of you, buddy.
And then write a riff towards it.
It's coming. The first ever heavy lullaby album sang by a baby.
That's amazing.
So I have a question. So you've been in music now. You've been with Kingdom. You're with Worth Dying For. Both of those seemingly kind of random encounters. And then Kutless comes along. Yeah. Did you know Kutless prior to this? Were they on your radar? Or were they someone you listened to? Or did they come up to you and you were like, who are you?
So I met Kutless. Our first tour ever with Worth Dying For was the Creation Festival tour.
I love Creation Fest. What year was that?
2008. Yeah, 2008.
I think I was there then.
It was. We just got signed, and they got us on this tour as the worship band. So we would play right before the worship, and then after us was the co-headliner was 1,000 Foot Crutch and Kutless. Mm-hmm. So we were before those bands. But I met Kutless, just clicked with them. We used to make like funny videos. If you search on YouTube, you put Nate from Kutless, you'll find a video we made. It's like a mockumentary about me trying to get into the band and being obsessed with them. Just an idea we had, and it happened, dude. And so it's really weird. So, but we just kept in contact I kept in contact with James mostly. He's a good friend of mine. And about 2015, I had just put out a worship little EP with my wife, and maybe that triggered something where they needed a guitar player. They had a fill-in, but they needed a guitar player. So he literally called me out of the blue. He said, "Hey, you have a second to talk?" We don't talk on the phone. It's all texting and memes. And he said, "Do you want to play in Kutless?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I just like quit my job and did that.
Nice.
It's like the least amount of effort I've put into anything. They're like, "Do you want to play?" "Yeah." "Okay, come up and practice with us for a bit." "Okay."
James is a good dude. We had him on the show, maybe 2 months ago. RJ, was it about 2 months ago?
He's our second episode. Yeah.
Yeah, I love James. We talk a lot.
So were you in Kingdom when Kutless came around, or had that ended?
Yeah, no, we just put out like an acoustic album, and then still doing it. I think we still had some shows and things like that, but yeah, actually, we are in the process of getting all of our songs together as Kingdom to put out one giant album with some new stuff potentially. So that's
nice.
That's an exclusive. So just because we have all these songs, they're not on. They were taken down from streaming. So something to do with the label at the time, and they took it all down. So we own it, so we're going to put it back up. But
nice.
Yeah, so we've never really ended necessarily, but I just was doing the Kutless thing. And
speaking of taking something down, I have the original "Worth Dying For" album. If you go to iTunes and put "Worth Dying For" in, they have the CD. You look at the CD; it's the same cover.
It's not the music though.
No,
it's, you know what that is?
It's terrible. That's what it is.
It is terrible. Here's what it is. Okay, so when we signed to Integrity, they did these things called worship tools.
Yeah.
And they would take, it's the weirdest thing, they would take your song, like Revolution.
Yeah.
And they would dumb it down. So they would retrack everything, but like acoustic.
Yeah.
And then someone else would sing it, and it's like not, I mean, no offense to the singers, it's just not us. It's not good.
It is terrible.
And it's, for some reason, so if you go look, you're like, it's not.
No.
It's really not. It's really like poppy, like it's almost like Kids Bop.
Yeah. So I was being lazy. I have it on my phone, but on my computer, I was going to jam out. So I'm like, I'll just use iTunes on my computer. I go, oh, here we go. What the crap is this?
When I heard Revolution, I was like, oh no, this is bad.
It's like diet food.
Yes.
You know, you have the original, like a nice juicy steak.
Yeah.
You go to a restaurant, all of a sudden it's like, what the crap is this? What's this tofu over here?
Yeah, I'm not sure why they don't just change the cover. I don't even think it says anything about what it actually is.
It says like resource tools or something.
Yeah, it's what it is. It's if you
that way too, I think.
Ah, cool.
But the original album's on there too, so you got both.
Okay, good. Yeah. And then our Love Ride album is on there, but it's under Fearless Band now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's kind of interesting that both of the bands that you were in are kind of still going in their own ways. Maybe they're different, but it's still cool that they're still carrying that name.
For sure.
So you're in Kutless now. I remember reading in an article that you don't record with Kutless, but it's more of a live.
Mm-hmm.
Does that leave you the opportunity to form another band if you wanted to, or are you tied to Kutless at this point?
No. It's very. I'm not opposed to doing any of that. It just hasn't worked out that way. So when I came in, they were pretty much finished with the Surrender album.
Yep.
So I haven't recorded anything. You know, they have a process. It's James and John Micah. They've been doing it for their half of their life. You know, They know what they're doing. But when we play live, I kind of put my own spin on stuff. So I don't always play the album version. In general, when we play live, it's a lot heavier than the album anyways. But yeah, I haven't recorded anything or written anything like that. I think it comes up a lot because
hard. There he is. Telling you. When I saw him headbanging, I'm like, this music's harder than the album. Boom.
Yeah,
Boom.
It's definitely a little harder in person, which sometimes is a surprise for the front row.
I love it. You guys are fantastic. I saw you guys twice. It was fantastic.
Thank you, man. But yeah, I think that question comes up a lot because when people hear my album, they're like, "Oh, this is interesting. I didn't expect this." Well, it's because they assume that my style of music is in the Kutless vein. It's really not. I love doing it. It's super fun, and I love what they've put out and accomplished over the years. But it's not. It's just not my angle, you know?
Well, it's funny. We asked James that same question because I remember when I saw you guys in Massachusetts like a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was, they had a question and answer before the concert started.
Yeah.
And James's music preference came up.
Yeah.
And he's not like, in general, the worship style person. He's like, Metallica, Nirvana, Soundgarden. Those, which I think they're fantastic bands.
Yep.
So here's my question for you. Is it hard to be in a band that's maybe not your style of music?
No. It's still like, it still is. And I do love the music and I love playing. Cause it's just, I mean, dude, it's so fun.
Yeah.
Like the first time I played Strong Tower live, I couldn't believe what I was doing. You know what I mean? I was playing Strong Tower in front of like thousands of people. It's just the craziest thing. But no, it's really not. The band is so fun to be in. Like James and John Micah and Neil, our bass player, Matt, our drummer. Everyone's great, and so it's really not. I don't think if it was another band, I don't think it would have worked out though. Like if it was like, I don't know, I just pick a band. They're like, hey, come play and Skillet. I'd be like, maybe it's probably cool, but like I just love what Kutless does, and so I love the guys. I love their hearts, and what the big sell for me was that they're like, this is a ministry. We want to. They don't want to just be stuck in churches. In fact, they don't want to really play in churches necessarily. Our big thing was going overseas. That poster right there, a girl made that when we were in Ukraine, and she drew it for us.
That's awesome.
And that's like the big passion, is going to other countries and places who don't hear that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
So that's what sold me on it. I was like, all right, cool, I'm in.
So before we get to the meat of this awesome interview about your music, let's ask you one question.
Yeah.
You have Sony Records gives you $1 million.
Okay.
They say, I want you to first build the band of your choice. Who's playing the guitar, drums, bass, harmonica.
Wow.
Not harmonica.
Saxophone.
Saxophone.
All right. That's a tough one. They have to be alive?
Anybody.
Because with the money, I think I can use the technology to bring someone back.
That's right. Now we're not calling you Jesus, but you could take him back.
Okay, so if it's, so I guess I would have to make up a greatest hits of like people that I would love to play with.
Yeah.
I think I would just play rhythm guitar.
Really?
I like doing lead, but rhythm and singing is fun. Like you don't have to think too much. So there's that. I would put probably Mike Ness from Social Distortion on lead.
Nice.
I think he's one of my heroes. I'd add another guitar and put Johnny Ramone on second rhythm.
Nice. Just
all downstrokes the whole time. Bass player. So my favorite bass player, I think, is a guy from a band called Face to Face, and his name's Scott Shiflett. I actually talked to him on Instagram. I kind of stalk him a little bit.
Nice.
He's amazing. I tried to get him on my stuff actually, and he's like, dude, but I'm still working on him. Drums. I love Joey from Disciple. He's super fun to play with. We did. He filled in for us for a little bit, so we did a couple of Kutless shows with Joey on drums.
He's a good dude.
Yeah, he's great. And we did a cover song together. It's on my YouTube, and he plays drums. So maybe I put Joey back on the drums. Put my friends on there, or my friend Drew Porter, who used to play in Kutless, just for the hangs. A lot of it is about the hang.
Nice.
I don't know any other saxophone players, but the guy, my buddy who plays on my album, Chris Bellamy, is fantastic, and he just happens to be a friend. So I'm basically picking people that aren't going to cost me a lot of money, except for bringing Johnny Ramone back from the dead. That might be expensive.
Nice.
That's true.
I don't know. I like a lot of players, but honestly, it comes down to their personality. Like who do you want to hang around with?
Yeah.
And the guys I play worship with, I would put them too. Like, and they're all talented and they're great dudes. They're not famous names, but they're super solid and good dudes. So
nice.
So 2020 has been a tough year, or was a tough year for most of us.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a lot of positive happened as well, especially for you with the new album last year and the new baby. So it was a good year for you.
Yeah.
But what kind of got you into wanting to do a solo album, and how did you get into this genre to do it?
So, like we talked about music, I was into music at a young age, but you kind of find, usually in your teens, you find like, okay, this is my music. You like a bunch of stuff, but this is like my thing. And so, when I was a teenager, it was kind of that second wave of punk rock. So like Green Day had come out and, blew everyone's mind. And so my sister was into all that stuff. So she was into Green Day and Rancid and those kind of East Bay punk bands. So through that, I discovered, I like to research. You research the liner notes and figure out who they like. And then you figure out and you keep tracing it back to like, where did it start? So I found the Ramones, the Clash, Social Distortion, bands like that. I just loved it. I loved the angst of it. I love it wasn't necessarily about, it was about the message more than it was about the music, if that makes sense. They were trying to accomplish something. It wasn't just music about whatever. Like they were trying to say something. And so I love that. So I had that punk kind of edge, and I also really liked like Johnny Cash and Storytellers, Bruce Springsteen, stuff like that, Fleetwood Mac. I was raised on Fleetwood Mac. So I kind of had this like, oh, what if I could do like punk rock, really angry sounding music, but like to have it sound like Americana and tell stories too and stuff like that. So fast forward years later, when I finally decided to sit down and do an album for myself, I kind of made a commitment to just write whatever I felt like, whatever message I needed to communicate, and not think too much about it. I wasn't going to think about what, Christian radio, any of that wasn't even a part of it. It was just like, literally, this is what I want to get off my chest, and I'm not going to edit it. It's going to be what it is. And so I got a little home recording set up, and my initial goal was to write and record and release one song a month for a year. So Politicians and Celebrity was the first one. That was July or June 2019. Yeah. So it came out as a single. So I released like 6 songs in a row.
Yeah.
And then I eventually was like, well, I have other songs stored up. I might as well just wait and put out an album. And so that's how that happened. But it was really just I talked about creating stuff that you want to see or you want to hear. And I just really wanted to make a kind of a punk album and sort of reference those bands and those sounds that I love, and do it for me. So it's a selfish thing, but I wanted to make an album that I wanted to listen to. So
the one thing I wanted to ask you is Politicians and Celebrities.
Mhm.
It's probably, I can relate to this because I can't stand both of them.
It's tough.
But I'm not perfect either, by no means. But
Yeah.
But the lyrics that goes, politicians and celebrities, they are scripting our reality. We're means to their end. These people aren't your friends. They just play them on TV. What they're watching on this screen, we're seeing in the streets. They want to make documentaries into a horror movie. What are you getting at here? What is your point of view? What's your message?
So I live downtown Bakersfield. I often will pass by a guy smoking crack in public, people who are hungry, people who have no shoes, all these things. And it gets to you when you see people who have a platform and someone pointing a camera at them, telling, from their shiny mansion on a hill that overlooks where the rest of us live, telling us how to live our lives and telling us what we need to do. And I'm like, you don't live here. You don't see it. You don't have to. You have a gate, So not that they're bad people. It's just that we do it. Like the people who are in the trenches with those people, we still look up to them and say, oh yeah, they told us how to live. We should do what they say. I'm so sick of like people on Twitter teaching us about morality when they're just as screwed up as we are. But for some reason, their words weigh more than the guy next to us 2 doors down. It's like, why are we paying attention to these people? And it was out of frustration, obviously.
No, I hear you, and I want to dig a little bit deeper here because I totally can relate to what you're feeling. From a Christian realm, we look up to people who look shiny, dress in nice clothes, have nice cars, even Hollywood pastors. Why is it, do you think, as Christians, we don't look to Christ? We don't look at Christ. We just look for people who can, one, fill our buckets of happiness, or we look for someone who we want to be like from a sinful point of view rather than a humble point of view.
I think it's just the same old age problem from the beginning. We want to be gods, and Jesus. The interesting thing is, even as Christ followers, we're like, yeah, Jesus, man, Jesus, like, but we don't do any of the stuff that he does.
Yes.
But so we find people that have it's like a more fast food version of, so Jesus is like the meal that takes a lot of work, takes time, hours, prep to do it, but it's great and it's good for you.
Yep.
We don't want to do that, so we'll settle for the shiny fast food version that's cheaper and more readily accessible, and call it food. Yeah. And I just think that's in our nature. Like we just do that. We do it with celebrities, athletes, but as Christians, we do it with celebrity pastors. Like we have our own subculture of celebrity within the Christian realm. Like we have, celebrity pastors like, oh yeah, that dude gets it. It's like, he doesn't get it, just like I don't get it. We're all the same. It just so happens that he's standing on a stage that's like 4 feet above where I'm standing. It's no different, but we want to, like, I don't know, we want to put our trust in that because I think maybe that's achievable. It's another way to save ourselves. Like, I'll worship this pastor because maybe I can achieve that, but I can't achieve the Jesus thing, and that's the whole point, is you can't. So you need to accept that and let him do the stuff. And stop trying to, like, find ways around it. Well, if I have a big church, then I could say that I sort of, like, helped out God. It's like, no, you didn't.
I also to add to that, because I think you're spot on with that one, but I also think to add to it, I think people they like the simplistic message that these celebrities pastors preach because they don't want to dig into theology.
It's hard.
It is hard. Like there's three words in love in the Bible. There's phileo, there's porneia, and there's agape. You know what I mean? And unless you are reading the Bible and you understand the context, you're not really truly going to understand. And I think a lot of times people will read the Bible with the idea of, what can I get out of it for me? Yeah. In other words, like, I want to fulfill. I have an idea of what the Bible says. I'm going to find out whether it's in context or not, something to fulfill my desire and what improve my point. And what's happening is they're not doing like you said, the prep. They're trying to find people who will give them that. Actually, John MacArthur. I like John MacArthur. Some people do, some people don't. I think he's very solid. I think one of the best things that he ever said was, soft words produce soft hearts. Hard words produce hard hearts. In other words, when you're preaching the Bible on Sunday and you're telling somebody this is what the Bible says, and if you don't like it, then I'm sorry. That's going to produce a softer heart rather than when you have someone going, Jesus loves you. Don't matter what. Let's not talk about sin. That's just offensive.
Well, you're right. No, you said something, and I was thinking, now that I'm a parent, it's like, you have two parents, and usually one is like the one that'll let you do stuff, the other one's not. Yeah. So like Jesus is like let's say it's the dad in this scenario who's like, nope, I keep a very tight ship with lots of rules. And so you don't ask dad for candy, you ask mom because mom will give it to you. Yes. So like we do that we can go to these pastors, whatever. I don't want to You know what I'm saying?
I totally.
You know who they are.
Yep.
We seek those people out because they will give us the stuff that we want. Where Jesus is like, look, I'm not going to give you what you want. I'm going to give you what you need, and that's not always the attractive thing. And so I think that's what it comes down to. And we all do it. I do it too.
So what do you think is? I'm sorry, RJ. I just have one more question. What is your view set on this 2020 has been, from a political standpoint, from a Christian standpoint, it has been a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, and I don't care who you like as far as politics goes. I love you no matter what. That's what I tell people all the time. But Christians have got to the point where it's like, oh, you like this person? Well, then I hate you. I hate you. Yeah. You like this person? How can you be a Christian? And they're almost, to be honest with you, they're actually almost letting their politics be their ideology of who they actually are as a Christian.
Yes, it's weird. I think about that a lot. I'm writing an album now, and a lot of those elements are on there because it's just stuff I'm trying to work through. I've seen it a lot. I'm a worship leader at a church, so I get to see it both sides firsthand. And I just think that I think a lot of it comes back to it's self-righteousness, and all these is disguised as different things. So I think that we have defaulted, instead of trying to become Christ-like or elevate ourselves, it's easier to lower someone else.
Yes.
So if we can say, you voted for this person, you're bad, because that makes me what's the opposite? It's me.
Good. Yeah.
You're bad, that makes me good.
Yes.
So I'm taking another step up towards righteousness, not because I'm actually righteous, because I'm just making you seem like a bad person. Based on what? A politics, a policy? Like, we all have, my words for 2021 is that we're all hypocrites. So just get used to it. And so if we can all start there and be like, hey, there's going to be things about your politics that I hate. There's going to be things about my politics that you hate. I'm going to preach to you about don't do this, don't do that. But at the same time, I'm going to do those things in a different way. Mm-hmm. There's no getting away from it. We're all hypocrites. We all need a savior, and your sin is the same as mine. They just looked a little different. Mm-hmm. I just think that and with the introduction of social media, we have a platform. We now have what we've always wanted. We always wanted to be a God, right? Well, now you can be a little God with a bunch of literally followers.
Yep.
So that's what they're called. You have your followers, you preach to them on Twitter, and they're your congregation. And now guess what? Another opportunity for you to pretend to be God. And that's all we do throughout history.
Well, it's funny because as Christians, we have such great opportunity to preach to people. But instead we're getting a hammer and hammering them down.
We have opportunity to share the gospel, but instead we just say, if you like this guy, you're a bad person. Like, okay, cool.
So your album comes out in the middle of all of this.
Yeah.
I'm gathering with intention some of your lyrics, with what's going on. And now you're saying your new album is doing a similar thing there with current events. You said something in a prior interview that I really liked. You said at the end of the day, we just need to ask questions. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, whether you're Christian or not Christian, you just need to ask questions. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I really believe that there is absolute truth. I'm a strong believer in truth is truth, doesn't change with time, location, who says it, it's truth. Mm-hmm. So if I believe that, then I have to trust that, and you have to let people find it. You don't find it without asking questions. So I'm not afraid of your questions. You shouldn't be afraid of my questions. The reason we get afraid of people asking questions is because we know we have no idea what we believe. So we don't want to be challenged on it because we're going to look stupid. So instead of letting them ask questions and expose our ignorance, we silence them. So I'm not about that. If there's something I believe for false reasons, I need to figure that out because I want to try to base everything on the truth, the actual truth.
Oh yeah.
And so we instead of doing that, we silence people that ask questions we don't like. And I think we do that because deep down we know we don't know what the heck we're talking about. We don't know what we believe. Because if you think about it, a secure person is not scared of your questions. What are they scared about? They give you the wrong answer, so then they correct it and find the right one. Mm-hmm. Right?
I love what you're saying about the absolute truth. I use that phrase all the time. I believe absolute truth. I believe Christ in the Bible is my absolute truth. And we're living in such a society where no one wants absolute truth. What they want is their feelings to be heard, their feelings to be justified. And as Christians, I believe, and what's to me is disheartening is we're biting that bullet.
Yeah.
We're not looking at the Bible as absolute truth. We're looking at the Bible as something like Rob Bell specifically. Sorry, I don't want to. Anyway, he was a there was a pastor back then who his theology was based on social. He believed it changed as society changed. And I said to myself, if that's the case, then you can't believe anything the Bible says. It's so as Christians now, what I'm seeing is you have people who stuff that used to be so black and white, it's now, well, maybe it's just not that simple.
Yeah, I think there's a balance in everything. You got to have head and heart. So you have to have head, which means you have to have the knowledge, you have to be grounded in truth, but you can't ignore the heart and pretend like there's no emotions wrapped in these things. We can't just ignore emotion either. Like Jesus cried, was mad. He did a lot of emotional things. So that by definition means it's not a sin, right? So head and heart, it's a balance. And sometimes most of the time we'll find ourselves in one of those ditches. So that's where you have a person who is in the heart ditch and everything's based on feelings and social whatever. And if this hurts someone's feelings, then it's not gospel. That's not true. Or you have that someone falls on the other side and it's all head and they're like, this is what it is. I don't care what you say, deal with it. And there's absolutely no grace or love to help people work through things. You got to find yourself in the middle. It's very difficult, especially now where everything is like, it's my truth. It's like, no, there's no such thing as your truth. It's truth. And that sucks for people to hear because then it means they could be wrong. And no one wants to do that. So
I think as Christians, we should want to be wrong. Like we should be open to being wrong.
You have to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you say to yourself, well, I'm never wrong, then
that's wrong.
Boom! You got it.
So 2020 has been, again, a crazy year. And putting that all aside, there's been a lot of positives for yourself, a lot of the other bands that we talk to on here. And it makes me really happy to hear that great things are happening for everyone. 2021 hopefully will be an even better year for everyone else. What do you have coming down the line that you want to share? If there's anything, or even let's get into hopes. What do you hope is happening in 2021 for yourself?
So like I said, I started working on what was going to be an EP back in summer because I'm just trying to keep writing and, keep that, muscle strong. So, but it's turning into an album. So, I'll have an album out in 2021 and I'm pumped about it. It's going to be, if you like the first album, I think you'll still like the second album. It's basically those elements that are on there are just going to be pushed a little bit farther. So if you like the punk rock stuff, it's going to get more punk. And if you like the Americana saxophone type Springsteen, it's going to get more to that. So it's just, I'm not going to reinvent myself. I'm not going to come out with a techno album, but
imagine that. It came out the techno album. Man.
Yeah.
There's always room for remixes.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I'll join another band that does techno, but so yeah, putting out an album and that'll be great. I'm looking forward to maybe playing some music in front of humans. I think that would be cool. And then, just, I don't know, life is different now. And as a whole, I just hope that, in the Christian world, like for us Christians, this is a kind of a intimidating time. You're kind of seeing culture turn on us, so to speak, which we knew was coming. Mm-hmm. But it can be very scary, and I understand that. But it's also an opportunity to show people what the Christian is. I think people have a misconception about what it is to be a Christian, and I think we're getting an opportunity to show the love of Christ, because we're kind of in a hostile environment, and so I think that the church grows under that. So it's weird. I don't know. I'm looking forward to some really just basic things like concerts.
Yeah.
Do
you picture yourself doing some actual Nate concerts as well as going back with Kutless?
Yeah, I actually, well, it's live stream right now, but I do have something coming up live stream, which will be my first concert. Nice. I've done some live stream, like, we put together stuff in quarantine, but this will be the first time with a band that we do that. Nice. Yeah, that's really exciting. A little nervous. I play music and shows all the time, but now I'm like, this is my thing. Okay, cool. So yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking, but it'll be fun.
Right. Very cool. Well, hey, I think Mike, unless you have something else, thank you, for coming on the show. It's been really awesome getting to know you and getting to know the many others that we've had up to this point. It's been a really blessing for us for this year. This was our positive of 2020, was being able to do this podcast and talk to you guys, and hopefully get your music out there even more, because I think this is an album that's super important to listen to with everything that happened in the last year or so. And I think it really just raises some questions and raises some hopefully some change, which would be good. I'm looking forward to the next album.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, of course. Well, thanks again for everybody who is watching on the 4/7 podcast. I am RJ. This is Mike, and again, this is Nate from Kutless and from himself with that album "I'm a Wreck." But thank you for joining, and you can stay on after we go live. We'll say goodbye. But thank you guys for joining. Have a good one.